important. No, he's in charge of practicum, and this is really crucial. Those of you who are not ministry majors, do ministry minors necessarily do practicum? So some majors and minors, this is real critical communication related to next fall, both registration, your location of ministry, and so I've asked him to come in. He'll be guiding the practicum situation. So Dr.
Morning, guys. Morning. Nice, thank you. It's early, so Dr. Marks wanted me to talk about practicums, and so we just did. All of you were involved with assessment day. Remember that fun day?
Yeah.
And one thing that I heard, at least within the group that Dr. Jacobson and I were working with, and I've heard it from other faculty in the groups that they were working with, is that students want more practical kinds of engagements with their training here at Corbin. We've known about that for years and years, and we've adjusted and accommodated for students' needs and preparing them for ministry and full-time vocational ministry in particular and those sorts of things. So the way that we have it structured for you all is that, let's say theoretically, you come to Corbin for 4 years. You start as a freshman here, and you end as a senior here. I know that all of us have fast-track programs, some are Kairos students, and all that just changes everything. But theoretically, the way that we used to do it is if you came for 4 years as a student in your freshman year, theoretically, typically you would take this class, Intro to Ministry, right? I know we have some seniors in here. Way to go, seniors. So theoretically, you would take this as a freshman. That way, you're introduced in a practical sort of way to what it means to be a ministry major. We do some readiness assessment, those sorts of things that Dr. Morris has been taking you through. We start thinking about what it looks like to be a ministry major, what it would look like on the backside of that once you graduate, and so on and so forth. So your freshman year, you would take this class. Then your sophomore year, junior, and your senior year, we used to have practicums. And I'll explain what I mean with used to. We used to have practicums each one of those years. So in your sophomore year, you would do a practicum. In your junior year, you would do a practicum. And then in your senior year, you would do a practicum as well. Let me start with the back end of that. The senior practicum, because all of our programs are fast-track programs, we are theoretically eliminating senior practicum and moving that over to the grad side of things. We now call it supervised leadership experience, because at graduate level you have to name things differently to sound more important, I guess. So, but it's a practicum anyways. So either way, you're still getting the 3 practicum experience, sophomore, junior, and then on the grad side of things, a supervised leadership experience. I teach all of those classes except this one. I used to teach this one, but I haven't taught it for a few years. Dr. Mars is going to teach it. So I used to teach all that. So I oversee all the practicum experiences for all of our undergrads and our graduate students. So however many 100+ students we have in both undergrad and grad, I have to make sure that all of you people are getting some sort of exposure to ministry and getting some sort of practical experience in ministry. So yay, it's really fun. So, and I love doing it. So let's talk, what is a practicum? Some of you are currently in practicums here, like, okay, I already know what this is about, that sort of thing. But for those of you who are not, a basic practicum works like this. Every academic program on Corbin's campus has a minimum requirement for all practicums, internships, or whatever else they call it. So if you're, let's say, for example, you're doing criminal justice and you have to do your internship, you have to meet a university standard for that. If you're doing health science and you're going to do some sort of internship in health science or psychology or business or whatever, those sorts of things, there's a university standard for that. We have to comply with the university standard of a minimum of 40 hours in a semester for hands-on ministry experience. Okay? Doesn't sound like much. Many of our students do way more hours than 40 hours in a given semester. But so theoretically, that's what you would do. You would take on 40 hours in a semester of supervised hands-on ministry experience, and you would go through that, and then that would complete your practicum. The way a practicum looks for ministry majors is basically this. At the beginning of your practicum, you meet with a supervisor or a mentor or a pastor, whoever is going to oversee what you're doing in ministry for that semester. You and that supervisor, you have a contract that you fill out. You sit down, you talk about what you're going to be doing for the semester, you both agree on that, and then you sign a contract. Contract is turned into us, and we hang on to that until the end of the semester. Then you do your 40 hours of hands-on supervised ministry experience. At the end of the semester, we send an electronic evaluation to your supervisor. They get a little email with a little link, and they fill out an evaluation on how well you did in your 40 hours of supervised experience. So that's the evaluation that your supervisor, your field, or your ministry supervisor, mentor, whoever that might be, they fill out that evaluation on you. Then you also fill out a self-evaluation, just kind of saying, this is how I felt about my experience. It was good, it was bad, this is what I learned from it, this is what I didn't learn from it, here's how I do things differently, etc. So you do a self-evaluation. So that's it. That's a practicum. Students ask me this, so any exams, any papers, any texts? Nope. There are no quizzes, there are no exams, there are no papers, there are no books to read in the class. And I tell students every semester, I said, the hard work is not the class. In fact, it's one of the easiest classes you will take in your time here at Corbin. Any practicum that you're involved in, easiest class you'll take. The hard work is not in the class. The hard work is getting out there and doing actual ministry. That's where the hard work is, okay? So what do we do each week when we meet for class? And I'll tell about how you don't have to come to the class either. But anyways, what we do each week in the class is we come in, we basically sit in a circle, we go around and everybody gives updates on their ministry for the week. What happened this last week? What I did, what I experienced, those sorts of things. We just share our reports, we go around the room, and then we end out our time praying for one another. I will tell you that in the time that I've been at Corbin, my favorite part of teaching practicum by far is the time that we get to pray for one another. To encourage one another, uplift one another. If there are needs for folks, we pray for that. Sometimes what we experience too in that setting is we'll be going around the room sharing, and somebody says, hey, I have this group of like middle school girls, and they're like really mean to each other. Can somebody help me out? So we troubleshoot with one another. Somebody says, hey, I have a student with, all kinds of things. We had a student like, hey, I have a student who's a cutter. And so I'm really struggling with how do we deal with this situation within my youth ministry or those sorts of things. We have kids who, in our youth group or maybe or children's ministry who have special needs, and I really don't know how to handle a kid that's autistic or a kid with cerebral palsy or something like that. How do we work with these sorts of things, et cetera, et cetera. So all those things kind of come up in our time, and we get to pray for one another, or sometimes we get to troubleshoot with one another. So that's basically what the class looks like. So that's practicum. That's what it looks like. All of our practicums, sophomore and junior practicum, like I said, we're phasing out senior practicum, so you won't see that on your degree sheets, especially if you're new to Corbin. Some older students might, but we're phasing out senior practicum. But we offer every practicum every fall, every spring, and every summer. So they're always available to you each time. So a student says, okay, well, I'm kind of worried about getting my practicums in. Well, we offer them every fall, spring, and summer. Do you have to take a practicum in your sophomore year? No. Do you have to take a junior practicum in your junior year? No. So I've had seniors who have come in as transfers, and they're taking sophomore, junior, and senior practicum all in their senior year. That kind of thing. Sometimes we have unique circumstances. We have a student who has come in this year, who's a transfer student, spent a gazillion months, almost like 2 years internationally serving in ministry. Day in, day out, we're waiving all the practicums for that student. Still have to make up the credit hours and that sort of thing some other way through elective, but we're waiving all that because they basically hit it out of the park as far as practicum experience. We've had students who come in. We had a baseball player a number of years ago, Russ, who came in. He's a senior pastor. He's just an older student. He didn't finish his bachelor's degree, so he came in and he was already leading his own church. And so he said, do I have to do all these practicums? We're like, no, Russ, you don't have to do all these practicums. Why don't you just have the chairman of your board sign off on our paperwork and stuff like that? So we waived him there. So if you have a special circumstances where you think you've already done like a ton of practicum experience that's supervised, that sort of thing, then we'll take a look at that and we will work with that. We want to flex with the students. We want to give you an opportunity to have a great practicum experience in getting hands-on ministry training and that sort of thing. Senior seminar technically is also a part of that. Some of you will be taking senior seminar. What is the senior seminar? Claire Jewell teaches that class for us right now. So with intro to ministry at the front end, practicums, and then senior seminar, that's kind of our practical thing there. Any of you have Claire Jewell for class this semester? I wouldn't think so, not in this class. It's okay. But senior seminar, we used to call it our Mary and Barry class, like you learn how to officiate weddings, how to officiate funerals, how to run meetings, how to meet with boards, how to interview for jobs, all that kind of stuff. We do resume development in that class, so we just cover a whole bunch of stuff before we send you out into the world and that sort of thing, and give you a little bit of preparation and those sorts of things. So that is practicum in a nutshell. I'm trying to think of anything else. Oh, during the summer, what do we do during the summer? We don't hold classes here on campus during the summer. Basically, you sign up for an online class. So it's an online class. You print out your contract, work with your supervisor, you send those back to us. You do your practicum at the end of the summer. We get an evaluation from your supervisor, and then you do a self-evaluation, and then you're done with your summer practicum. Let me address some other questions, then I'll open up to your questions. Students ask this all the time. Okay, so I'm going on a summer of service trip. We have a lot of summer, or I'm going on a missions trip. Does that count for practicum? Yes, because you're obviously going to get more than 40 hours involved in ministry on a summer of service or a missions trip. So those certainly count for that. Okay, so that's one question that students ask a lot about practicum. Yes, you can do that. And they say this, well, what if I'm going to go on the trip like in summer, but I'm doing all the planning and all the hard work up front during the spring? Should I take the practicum in the spring or in the summer? We don't care. You can take it either time. It's up to you. You get to self-select on that. Because you're doing the preparation, then you're going on the trip. It doesn't matter, either way, it works fine with us, okay? And that happens with students every once in a while. So we try and work towards what works best for your schedule and those sorts of things, okay? Another very popular question is can I double dip on my practicum and my REACH credits? So all of you have to do REACH credit, and REACH credit is 40 hours across the year, is that correct? Did I say that right? So it's in an academic year, you have to put in 40 hours for REACH credit, okay? If you can get 40 hours of ministry practicum in a semester, and you can get 40 hours on top of that for REACH, then yes, you can double dip. But you can't get both credits for just the same 40 hours. It doesn't work that way. You will be caught, you will be found out, and you will go to REACH jail, I think. Something like that. So that's a no-no. So we try and stay away from that as well. I'm trying to think. There was one other thing. Maybe it will come up. Do you guys have any questions about practicums and what they look like, or there was something else I was going to share with you guys? Maybe it will come to me. Some of you are already in oh, well, go ahead.
Yeah, if we're sticking with the old transcript, do we do senior practicum stuff?
Yeah, if you're sticking with a current degree sheet that says senior practicum on it, then we will put you into senior practicum, okay? And then we're talking about whether that will be dual credit or not on the grad side of things. So if you're on that program sheet and you still have senior practicum on there, and then you go on to graduate school, we'll probably give you the supervised leadership experience credit. We'll dual credit you on both of those. So that's what
the Kairos students need to know that it's different. You need to take sophomore practicum in the fall period. And if I haven't made that clear, if you need to do it in the fall, the Kairos director will be in with that class. And that's
right.
our weekly relational aspect. So you'll need to take sophomore and junior both in the fall.
Yeah, so that's a key for Kairos. Thank you for mentioning that. So you have to take sophomore in the fall and junior in the fall of your sophomore and junior years, right? And then the Kairos director is usually in there and meets with those students. So Dr. Martin and I have doubled up there. Yeah.
Just a semester long?
Just a semester long. Yep. Yep, just a semester long. Pretty easy stuff. What else I was thinking? Other questions?
Ron, would I be able to do it over the summer instead of the sophomore year?
Not really,
No.
that's not my desire.
No, okay.
For Kairos students, probably a little bit different.
It's overlap with language and cultural acquisition, which.
Okay, so good question. So what if they're offered at the same time, right? Because some of you are in language and culture acquisition, is that right?
That's
So,
what
yeah.
I was hoping to take, yeah.
Yeah, so what we would do is then we would sign you up for the online component. You would still sign up for the class. We would
Okay.
force enroll you into the class because there's a time conflict.
Okay.
We'd force enroll you there, and then you would work at like an online class.
All right.
I have probably half a dozen students this semester that they got in that kind of scenario.
All right.
So they're doing it online. So, and then it's up to them. They can stop by my office. We talk, maybe once or twice or 3 times, depending upon their needs throughout the semester as to how the progress of their practicum is going. Those sorts of things. Yeah. Oh, I know what I was thinking. Can you get paid to do a practicum? Dun dun dun. Yes, you can. There you go. Reach has to be volunteer. But we ran into the scenario where sometimes we have full-time youth pastors who come to Corbin, that sort of thing, and they're like, well, I'm already getting paid. Do I have to do like 40 hours on top of my pay? No, it's part of your position. How that works out with Reach, I don't know. You have to talk to Reach about that because Reach is more volunteer. But this, you can get paid and you can do your practice. So we have people do internships and all kinds of things, and they get paid for that, and that more than qualifies. So, yeah. Stuff. Cool. Jen?
Is it too late to sign up for the practicum for this summer?
Nope. No, you still have time. Yeah. And if you're running into registration glitches, like somehow they can't get you in, or it's an online thing, or there's a time conflict or something like that, just come see me, and I'll do my best to either force enroll you into the class or make sure that it works out for you if you're in any situations. Some students asked us, what if I take overload in a semester, does it count towards my overload? Yeah, unfortunately, because it's academic credit, so yes, it does count towards overloads if you had that sort of thing. Yeah. Any other questions? Wait.
If you're not a Kairos student, can you still enroll in fall practicum?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, for non-Kairos students, you can enroll whatever you want. There you go. Yeah, you can do that. Cool. Other questions? Going to pitch tonight?
Sure.
So tonight is our SMA Spring Banquet. You all should come. You know why? Because, well, food, yeah. Obvious stuff. Yeah, there's dinner. Full on dinner. Yeah, Rob Beckley's going to be there. Do we need to say anything else? You have to go if Rob's there. Besides, you already paid for it. Has anybody told you that? If you're a ministry major, we take $20 from you every fall and spring.
Savage,
that's right. And that goes to the SMA fee, so you've already paid for it. So like, if you want to just throw $20 in the street and look at it that way, then you can do that. Or you can come. If you are a minor, is that what you're going to ask, Alec? If you're a minor or interdisciplinary, you come anyways. We most likely didn't charge you, so you get to go on somebody else's $20 that doesn't show up. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, can I bring my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my significant other, my wife, my spouse, that sort of thing?
my cat?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, only, well, I was going to say something mean, because I don't like cats, and you know that. Hey, by the way, most outstanding Corbin fan, right there. There he is. Yeah, there you go. Sweet. There you go. Any other questions you have for me?
Would it help if they told Kelly that they're coming, or just come?
Just come. Yeah, just come. I mean, if you want to tell Kelly, at this point, we have rough figures already, so I think there should be plenty of food. We'll squeeze in more tables and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Great.
All right.
Thanks,
guys.
So you're not gonna be
Yeah, it's semi-formal, so dress up, you know?
This is tonight to ask the girl. Shoot your shot.
It's not formal, like, last night was really formal,
Yeah.
so this is semi-formal, so I'll probably just, maybe I'll change my pants. There you go.
Did you actually answer your comment about can you bring another person with you?
Did I not answer that?
You said he can't bring his cat. The cat.
Oh, yeah, I got disrupted by the cat. Okay, so sorry, I got yes, you can bring somebody, yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go. So there's your shot, don't bring your cat.
If you were not here last Tuesday, or if you asked me to hold on to this, I need you to come and get the 2 handouts. You didn't happen to bring your IDAC results. I think I have most of them, not all of them, printed out. So these are in alphabetical order. So do that now, if you would. If you were not here last week, you need these 2 handouts. You need your IDAC, but give me the IDAC back. And if you brought it, pull it out. IDAC, pull it out. If you don't have it, they're over here on the phone. It's great. And I'm going to have you look at some scripture, so grab your phone or whatever it is, pull out your, get your Bible ready.
But if it does, what do you so I think he thinks that was and then next term, if you get 40 hours during your practicum,
This thing on board, I need to price.
and get your practice done. Although I don't know.
Yours might be near the end, but
Look, that's a shirt. That's how I felt. Like I'm just, see, when I think of middle schoolers, I think of the pressure on
Have you seen it? Tank top, not not a shirt, backpack.
That's how middle schoolers talk about nowadays.
Hey, Karen, did you watch it? No?
Hello?
How's the Holy Land?
I want to go there right now.
That's for the ministry.
Which one?
Yeah.
This one.
I'll do my practice. I'll
okay, here you go. Okay, here we go. 20 minutes, we'll carry this over to next Tuesday, probably. So, this is Intro to Ministry, and this is intro to you thinking about yourself, your divine design. Best I can tell, there's only the basic two options that you can go with. One is you can wait for this calling, this burning bush. This is what I have to do because you heard a voice from God. Or, for me, the only other alternative is some combination of what I've been trying to communicate, and that is the three circles: you, and then God's purposes, and the needs of others. And so you're, in my opinion, you are just starting on this journey that we're just trying to get some data points into your life. So IDAC, spiritual gifts, passions we talked about last time. I gave you some multiple intelligences because what I'm hoping over time is that you understand that you're going to have to make a decision along with prayer in the community, who you are, and you're going to have to connect with an organization. So I've just got the results back. I mean, looked about the guy's going to pay $250 to get the assessment, the IDAC assessment. He spent 5 or 6 hours doing it. This is a review. And this company has, on my desk, I have this thing where they've done the career match, and they've matched different, the very IDAC results you have. They've connected to different organizations. They're the only one that I'm aware of now that does that. There are all kinds of vocational types. If anybody ever wants to get into this, there are people who have been working on this for decades, saying if you're this type of person, we think you should do this kind of job. So this is just introductory data that you're going to go now through these ministry experiences, these practicums, and you're going to say, oh, okay, I've done this. I really didn't enjoy teaching youth. I didn't really enjoy teaching children. I'm not sure what kind of public speaker I am. So those are just simple examples. And you're only going to find that out by doing things. So you need to get ready to know who you are. And then when you start looking for jobs, one of the things I'm going to encourage you to think about seriously is that you understand what kind of person they're looking for. And so this is part of the exploratory journey to say, who am I? And then what does this organization want? And so I just want to give you a couple of things here before we jump into I think we'll do the IDAC, we'll jump right on that. Do you know who Andy Stanley is?
Oh, yeah.
So I love the story that he tells about in one of his books. He's in high school, and he's driving along with his dad, Charles Stanley, who's had this huge ministry at First Baptist Atlanta, I think it is, for years. And Andy Stanley, he's a high school kid, and what he has just watched is that in the Southern Baptist Church, they had an altar call, and somebody came forward and said, I feel called to ministry. So right there on the spot, Andy Stanley's dad, Charles, says, so-and-so has come forward because he feels called to ministry, and we're going to pray for him now in his call to ministry, some altar call thing. So Andy Stanley has watched this, and he's in the car with his dad, and he goes, Dad, is it okay if I volunteer? And it took his dad up short because he wasn't quite sure what to say, because obviously he's part of the calling mentality, right? So his son says, is it okay if I volunteer? And his dad says, I guess so. And then that, obviously the story goes on there where Andy Stanley's got this huge ministry. Now that's only a little piece of his journey, but I like that perspective of what we're trying to communicate in this class, is that do all kinds of things. This is how you find out your personality. This is how you find out your temperament. And I have a phrase, here's a typical statement. God equips those he calls. Have you heard that before? God equips those he calls. So it assumes a couple things, right? That everybody's got some kind of calling. Or maybe you're just lucky and you get a calling, not everybody does. And then God will equip you somehow. And it kind of implies that everything that you need at that moment when God's calling you, you have. My problem is, one of the problems I have is Moses, because he specifically got a call, but did he have all the gifts and abilities that needed for the job? What did God provide in that situation? Did he provide some kind of supernatural thing for Moses? Who did he provide? Aaron, right? So God provides people, but it's not just assuming that everything's gonna be in me, that there's gonna be a team there. Okay, I wanna show you something here, just about as we move into discussion of skills and intelligence. I want you to turn to Genesis 4. Genesis 4. Verse 19. The context is Cain killing Abel, children are born. In verse 19, Lamech married two women, one named Ada and the other Zillah. Ada gave birth to Jubal. He was the father of those who live in tents and raise livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all who played string instruments and pipes. Zillah also had a son, Tubal-Cain, who forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron. And what I love about this is that from the beginning in the story, when you're developing your theology of work, you're going to see people have different roles to play. And they're listed here, the shepherd, caring to take livestock. I love it, the fact that music is right there at the beginning. And that's what God chooses in Genesis there to articulate, that music is one of those things that people were on that path. And then people who use their hands, tools out of bronze and iron. Okay, now go over to Exodus 35. So you were building the tabernacle, right? Notice in verse 1 of 36, actually. I'll start later. So he's commanded these certain people with skills to create the temple. So Bezalel, Aholiab, and every skilled person to whom the Lord has given skill and ability to know how to carry out all the work of constructing this sanctuary, or to do the work just as the Lord commanded. Then Moses summoned those two guys that I don't want to say their names, and every skilled person to whom the Lord had given ability and who was willing to come and do the work. And so then the people start giving. So what I also want you to see is that from the beginning, God uses different skills to create something. In this case, the tabernacle. Not everybody did the work, right? But everybody gave. So you remember the story that eventually they say, hold up, you don't need to bring any more, we have enough. And so you had the builders with these skills that God had given them. These were God-given skills. I don't think that's changed. I think that over these thousands of years now, that we have been given different skills, temperament, passions, and that's what we're talking about, working on these data points. So I want you to go over to the handout and to page 1, and I want to just remind you of where we've been and where we're going here as a handout: passions, gifts, natural talents, and personality. So, page 1. We looked at our definition of vocation last week, and we said that you're finding your role in the realm of work is discovered through the careful examinations of our passions, gifts, natural talents, and personality, through personal reflection and input from the Christian community. And then we talked about passions. Those who weren't here last Tuesday, just the big heading here is that not everybody has passion that motivates them to change the world, save the world. And I told you about the Stanford people that claim that in their research only 20% of people have something you'd call a passion, a cause, a certain group of people. So I had you talk about that a little bit. And then we jump down to multiple intelligences. And I think what I'll do, I said we'd talk about it today, but I think I'm gonna do the IDAC for a moment. And then next week we'll come back to that multiple intelligences as one of the data points. So, here's what if you look at number 4 on the handout, here's the theory. That natural talents include inherent aptitude, you see it on the handout, not skills learned through education, training, or work experience. Okay, so that's a key point of what you have just done. This is just inherent in you over time. Can I prove that some things are how you were born, and which things were part of being raised in the family you were raised in? That's always the debate in psychology. Nature and nurture. Debate's been going on a long time. Is who you are just something you were genetically coded to be able to do, or what's the influence of the people around you? It's hard to prove, but it's reality that you have certain inherent aptitudes. Okay, so they define these things: communicational talents, which are means of expressing your thoughts. Relational talents, the most effective way of expressing your thoughts. And then functional talents, task-oriented aptitudes. Okay, so you took the assessment, you have some results there, and let's just, for the sake of the fun of just seeing where people are, how many turned out to be, let's see, I need somebody's, how many turned out to be multi-relational? Raise thine hand, please. Multi-relational, okay? How many, I forget the name, what's the singular one called?
Singular relational.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, nice, it's in my memory somewhere. Okay, how many were singular relational? Raise your hand. Okay, and what's the other one?
Familiar group.
Familiar group, okay. Raise your hand if you were familiar. Okay, so somebody in the familiar group, say, did this come out correct for you? Is this, when you read the definition, anybody have any pushback on familiar? You're most comfortable with familiar. Anybody have any? How about anybody on yours? Multi-relational, anybody have any questions or pushback on that? I'm not sure that's me. Okay. Our survey just here, it proves what over the time that they've been doing this, most people come out multi-relational. Okay. So let me ask you this question. If you were, we'll just take I'm going to take one occupation. Let's take one occupation, and let's take a youth pastor. Do you think, and now I want you to think, not that you're going to be a youth pastor, but think about what you came out on communicational. Do you think that your aptitude would make it hard or easy to be a youth pastor? Look at your thing, what you know about being a youth pastor. Hard, easy. I'm gonna let you think. Stare at yours. Even though this is not what you want to be, just think in general, this category. Person in this category be hindered in any way with being a youth pastor? This is the relational one, right? No, it's the first time you thought about it. Yeah, just relational. I miscommunicated. I'm just looking at relational.
I'm familiar with that might make it hard to like reach out to continuously to other people, new people, or have them in the group, or if I can see the board.
Seems like that'd be a good assessment. Yeah.
Paired with that, I'm multi-relational, and I feel like something that like Andrew, like that type would have that I don't, or would struggle with, is the idea of like, oh, I can reach out to people at the door, but the depth might not be there because I'm so focused on getting out to other people. that I might
Okay,
just be
the
so-
multi-relational person may not be as comfortable in that, may not in
Yeah, may
that
not.
thing. I saw another hand. How about being the lead pastor? Think about a lead pastor's, the general picture of a lead pastor. Are they best with one of these, or are they hindered by one of these?
I think it also kind of depends on if he wants to focus on relational talent, but I think it also depends on other sorts of talents that you have, or what you're.
The other gifts,
Yeah, the other gifts, because like for instance, mine's basically all words and then presentations, like teaching. So that's, and I've been a pastor. So then that was a difficult job for me to fulfill, because although I connected with the people, I didn't know how to like communicate in that.
Because of which aspect of your personality?
Just because it's more informal.
Okay, good up front, you mean like?
Yeah, because I'm multi-relational, which would mean that I'm good at making those connections. But other than that, like it's difficult to connect young people.
So the one-on-one interaction might be harder.
Sure.
Might be more of a challenge for that personality. So. Anybody else have a thought about whether your relational talent would be a help or hindrance to these?
I trended more towards a like singular relational, so I find myself in the opposite situation of him, where I'm not great at meeting new people. I'm not great at like connecting with new people, but once I do, furthering those relationships is something I'm better at. So, you know, there's going to be like an aspect where no matter, you know, at what point in this job, no matter where you are, you're going to have to learn how to do, you know, one thing or another. You know, like I'm still learning to meet new people better and be more socially affluent in my first meetings with them, so they don't think I'm a weirdo. It doesn't always work. But
get honest assessment. Okay, let's look at communicational talents. And what I want you to do, time just flying by, I want you to talk to the people around you for a minute and just share your results. But I want you to, after you've shared your results, I want you to, and I'm just doing this for sake of argument, because I had down to talk about what it means to be a Bible translator or other things, but maybe we'll get to that next time. Take this one again, what you know about being a youth pastor. After you've shared your three, do you think that again, use this as a category because you know yourself, just make it easy or hard to be a youth pastor? If you had these communication talents. Is that clear? So first just share your results. I'll wander around, you get hung up. Share your results, 2, 3, 4, whatever number. I need to let you go until, so if I brought your IDAC results, give them back to me, and I'll bring them again, and yeah, you're dismissed. We'll see you next Tuesday. Divine Design, we'll do that day. We're going to talk about it.